our society is obsessed with the concept of happiness and anything that we think will give it to us. Every advertisement that you encounter is an attempt for someone to sell you a product, a service, a good that they believe is going to fill in whatever lacking that you perceive inside of yourself, in essentially that they know that you're dissatisfied with something in your life, and that this flex tape, this Coca-Cola, this fitness regimen, this gym membership is the thing. This diet is what will satisfy what you've been craving, what you've desired, whatever. Like, that's the sum of all of it. Why are we this way? You might be led to believe that, well, it's because we're inundated with so much advertising, that's why we think this or believe this. But this is not a new problem. Going all the way back to writing on papyrus scrolls, and even like that, you go all the way back to where people couldn't even read and write at all. The people were talking about, how do we satisfy these cravings inside of us? And two major schools of thought emerge. There was the hedonists that believe I just pursue pleasure, passion, and just fill me up on food and sexual gratification and just whatever. Like, if I can just pursue all that, then that's the thing. Like, I will be a full human. Not surprisingly, in response to this directly, you have the ascetics of that. No, see, all that stuff, that's evil, and it leads to evil, and it results in evil. So what I need to do instead is I need to deprive myself as much as possible. I need to cut myself off. I'm going to eat nothing but like oatmeal with not even like sugar in it, and some even go beyond simple deprivation into that I'm going to harm myself, I'm going to cause physical pain to my body and abuse it so that I can achieve this. And so you have this monastic asceticism versus you have this, in a similar way, monastic hedonism. And the conflict between them and the option placed before us by them has summarized all of human history. Whether that's facilitated by the printing press, or if that's facilitated by internet clicks, or if that's like the whole thing. Every decision we have made as a being, you could, like, the angel and the demon on the shoulder has been between these two of society throughout all of human history. But as much as we think that, that's just back when we didn't know. Now, like, even if you look into some of the stuff that's anti-Christian or anti-modernist or a non-conformist with society, like Wicca and Satanism and things, like, you'll still see this language, like harming no one, do what thou wilt. That's your hedonism. That's what that means. That's what that is. And then on the other side, you have the Puritans, or the Quakers that are just, no, we need to not do, like, we need to limit our access to, we're gonna boycott or ban even Christmas and gift giving because those things are corruptive. Like this, we're going like veganism. We're gonna, and interestingly, anytime either one of these is engaged in, whether that's the hedonist, they always look at that as an opportunity to massage the ego with their conquests. And over here, see, I don't eat meat because it's bad for the planet, right? Whatever. Like, I drive a Prius, or I have a Tesla, or over here, like, he's got his yeet truck with rolling coal. It's lifted and everything. Like both of these, they end up becoming exaltation of the self, which interestingly, the self is the very thing that drove you into that. And it's the same self that drove them into this. So what ends up, when you hold these two options up in front of you, what we see is that as much as we may desire a thing, neither one of them is truly satisfied. That's why they keep on going back into whatever their well is, whether that's their pleasure. Like, it's not enough to have sex one time. You have to have sex every weekend, or like, and it doesn't even, like, it's not enough to have one partner. It's multiple partners, or multiple partners at once. Or over here, it's not enough to simply limit yourself to one partner. It's that you have to only have sex once occasionally, and it's only for the purpose of reproduction. If you're not reproducing, then don't. Or, you know what, it's not enough to be in a monogamous relationship with just one person. You need to actually be in no relationships at all. We're going to build a cloister over here where people like us, where we have no attachments whatsoever, except to this cloister, of course. We're attached to that, but it never ends. So what's the solution? John Piper is a pastor. He used to be a pastor in Minneapolis. Now he's more of a conference speaker, and older in age. He's he's in his 60s, 70s now. He wrote a book called Desiring God a long time ago. Really good, highly recommend it, in which he describes something called Christian hedonism, which seems counterintuitive, but the thesis of the book is that God is the ultimate fulfillment of everything that we crave. God himself is the fulfillment of everything that we crave. That's why heaven is the way that it is that it's his internal self-existent nature flowed out upon the universe, that makes it so that the beauty and the colors and everything that you see, and the peace and the justice that is present, that's why it's like that. It's because it's him. It is actually him himself that is filling in all the gaps that our society has been experiencing all along. That we're craving him. When you crave good food, when you crave, like, what you're not craving that thing as much as you're craving the thing it's pointing to, which is pointing you towards God. And that you will not be satisfied until you are satisfied in him. That but he's not the origin of this idea of Christian hedonism. You can go back to C.S. Lewis, who in The Abolition of Man and several other of his writings, he would talk about that it's not that our desires are too weak that we end up setting on these, or it's not that they're too strong that they're driving us towards these things. It's actually that they're too weak and they're just settling for the lesser. It's that we can't even comprehend how great and good and wonderful God is, so we're just, yeah, all right, over here with this. And then you go even further back, you go to things like the Westminster Confession of Faith and Catechism, that the chief end of man is to be satisfied in God ultimately. Or you go with Heidelberg Catechism, and you go, like, as you step back through Christian theology, even into the book of Ecclesiastes summarizes this, that everything is a chasing after the wind. And as much as we might read that, we don't really believe that, because of the fact that we haven't experienced what everyone else, what Solomon has claimed. Like, yeah, food, like, it's because the reason that the food I'm having is not satisfying is because it comes out of a box. And if I just had fresher grass-fed ingredients, then I would be satisfied. But there's rich people who are having that fresh and grass-fed, that they're not satisfied by that either. And so, like, you know what? It's because of the bread. I just need to cut the bread out. I need to get the bread out of my diet. If I did that, then I would be satisfied by the food that I'm eating. Or, you know what? It's because of the sugar. I just need to cut off. I just need to drink water. But then the water doesn't satisfy either. You know what? Here, add this to your water. You need to add a little bit of lemon, then you'll be satisfied by it. Like, it's unending in that direction. That we rest on those things. We literally idolize whatever the new thing is. That's why every year a new book is published in this issue. That's why the self-help section of Barnes & Noble and half-price books in the secondhand bookstore is always full. None of those shelves are ever empty, because for every one book that comes off of them, someone buys, there's another one to fill its space. It's because it's all meant to point us towards God. It on the one hand serves us in showing us our inability to attain this on ourselves, and as the appetite remains, shows us that there's something else beyond and transcendent of these things that does fulfill it. That's why the Old Testament, God is through the prophets like, no, be satisfied in me. Be satisfied in me, because I'm the only one who can. That's what Christian hedonism is. And like, I can't recommend to you enough to go get that book, pick it up, leaf through it. It's worth reading. It's worth rereading multiple times. But and just encourage you that if you're struggling emotionally, mentally, of that you're just dissatisfied in your life, I just want you to consider that maybe the reason that you're dissatisfied with your life, maybe the reason that you are overwhelmed and anxious, maybe you're experiencing those things because you haven't experienced the God who can comfort you in whatever it is you're struggling with. Just maybe, just consider that as an option and see where that takes you.